Here we are at the Free Speech Movement Cafe, and Howard Rheingold and I are going to go for a walk, and we're going to sort of see what pops up. Okay, if you'd been here in 1964, this plaza would have been nothing but police cars and students. And Mario Savio would have been right there telling us that we've got to caution about being part of the machine. And right here, Jake was thrown in the back of a police car and held captive for, God, I can't remember, 18 hours or something. And if you know these shoes, you'll know that I'm still with Howard Rheingold, which
And I am on a free zone. This soil and the airspace extending above it shall not be part of any nation and shall not be subject to any entity's jurisdiction.
You can say anything you fucking feel like right here on this spot, you know? This is a magic place.
Let's see if we can take it with us.
Oh, okay. We're going to levitate the spot and continue walking along.
So as I was saying,
what a legacy.
My journalism students complain about why do they have to read about the history of the public sphere in the early days of print literacy.
Okay.
And so I finally figured out that lectures are for teachers to tell students what they need to know, that they know they're not going to read. They're not going to read in the text, because they're just not going to read the text. On the other hand, maybe it's my attentional style, and I think it's certainly a lot of students' attentional style. There are great lecturers, but it's sort of boring to sit in a classroom for an hour.
Oh my God.
I listen to great lectures on iTunes U when I walk, and I listen to my iPod, and I've watched hours of Mike Wesch's videos online. So I'm not saying that lectures are obsolete. I just question whether we should spend much of our time in the classroom doing it. So back to video. There's a point to the story. So I made a little 12-minute lecture. Just turned to my computer camera and spoke. Talking.
You're known to do that, right?
Talking head, and talked about why knowing what happened in the English Civil War in the early days of print literacy was important to young journalists who are going out today in the era of digital media and changes in institutions there. But I was able to use Sprout Builder, which is a site for building Flash applications, to build a little widget, which I was able to embed that video. I also had a little tab. You click on the tab, and it gives you links to what I think are the 7 or 8 best online sources for what's happening to the public sphere in the internet age. I also have a tab that links, it links to my Delicious RSS feed. Right. So whenever I tag a site with the term public sphere, it shows up on that widget. So then I can post the widget on the class blog, but the nice thing about these is that you can share them. So I also
what's the student
I posted it on my pod.
Are they getting something from it? Are they visiting? They doing it?
Well, this was a reaction to them not wanting to read the texts. I mean, talking about it. So I need to try it on a new crop of students to see how they deal with it.
Exactly.
But the great utility of it is I can post this widget in the first post of a forum thread or a blog post, and then they can asynchronously comment on it. So I think one of the things we can do with video and education is to take these little. It's not quite a soundbite. It's a lot longer than a soundbite, but it's not quite a lecture. It's like a little micro lecture.
The magic moments.
And attach it to resources for. There are those people who want to quickly get the surface and know what they need to know and move on. Yeah. Because they're all taking too many courses and don't have any time. And then there are the people who are really interested in a particular subject, and I'm giving them the ability to dive deep on it. So I think that there's a lot of utility in learning how to do it. It's not high production value video, but
well,
it is.
High production values are generally overrated, except for like in movies or maybe a sports broadcast.
Yeah, I think the point is that if you can see somebody's face saying something, it does convey a great deal more.
Oh, yeah.
Than,
but even cartoons and stick figures fake people into thinking they're dealing with a human and get emotional reactions. So.
Oh yeah, the media equation.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Look, I'm going to cut this off because I'm afraid people are going to get vertigo watching, and I don't have iMovie 09 yet, so because I wasn't on record. Well, hey, journalism, the work you're doing here at Cal, what are you learning? What are the big lessons so far, Howard?
You know, I'm learning so much every day that I go home and I feel like I have burned as many calories as I've been working out. I'm barely
brain calories.
Yes. I'm barely able to keep ahead of what I'm teaching in terms of the technologies that I'm bringing in. So I sort of put a stake in the ground by saying on February 12th I'm going to teach widgets, and you know, on February 11th I better learn
yes.
how do you make a widget. I am learning mostly that if I can create the feeling that I know what I'm doing and give them the outlines of what the limits are, if I can cut the students loose to teach each other and intervene but keep my mouth shut a lot, amazing things happen, and I think I know what they ought to know from this particular set of texts, but I think that if I tell them, it's not going to sink in. It's not going to mean, if they discover a tenth of it on their own, it's going to be more meaningful to them. So that's the most important thing I've discovered. It was very scary to do it at first, to say, okay, move your chairs in a circle and I'm going to sit down and we are going to explore this. I'm giving up some authority, and it's very scary. And I think for people who have more respect for authority than I do, it must be really frightening. And if you spend, also it breaks the business model of teaching, which is you put 90% of your effort into creating a course, creating the syllabus, creating the lectures, teaching it the first time, and then the second year it's like 70% of the work, and then for the next 20 years, you coast on it, and you can't do that if it's really student-centric. It's always something new. And another thing I've learned is students get into college by learning to ace the tests, or at least pass the tests in high school. So they listen to the teacher's voice to determine whether this particular fact is going to be on the test. Sometimes they ask, is this going to be on the test? And then they write that down. And I guess they read it to themselves over and over again or something. They memorize it. And then they regurgitate it for the test. So when I say, okay, laptop's closed, because we're playing with attention, they say, but I need to take notes. I promise I'm not going to go Facebook or play World of Warcraft. And I say, don't even use your pencil and paper. Let's see whether we can just inquire into this and pay attention for the time we're here together. And then we'll use the wiki after class to try to reconstruct those notes. So I am learning something every time. I walk into class with the big fear. I mean, it's, I do a lot of public speaking, and I can speak to 1,000 people, no problem. But engaging these students, that's to me a challenge that has a lot more risk to it. Or I guess if you do it right, it has more risk to it. But I walk out of the class totally energized, thinking, okay, we threw it up in the air and it landed. Anyway.
All right, off we go. So our walk is over. Here we are at University Press.
Yes, back to old Mediaville.
Yes, exactly. You can tell them that it's all going to be on the web. It's just a matter of time, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Well, see you at our next walk.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jay.